Hello, crazy transformers, and welcome to Level of Crazy YouTube channel, where we dive deep into all topics EI, EQ, healing the divide within ourselves and with each other, transforming that reactive crazy into proactive crazy, optimizing that emotional intelligence. And today's episode is about surviving the crazy real estate market, tips to handle the madness, and how to stay alive and on top. I am your host, Ala Esther Levy, emotional intelligence specialist, minister of spiritual healing, undercover comedian. And our ghost, ha ha ha, sorry, our guest on Zoom today is Ramon Franco, your forever agent in South Florida. Ramon began his professional journey in 1990 with Club Med, the European resort pioneer of the all-inclusive concept. Starting as a GO, he managed resort operations across Mexico, the Dominican Republic, and the Turks and Caicos Islands. His leadership potential was recognized in 1995 when he was promoted to Regional East Coast Supervisor at the North American headquarters in Manhattan. By 1998, Ramon advanced to manager of airport services and eventually became the group sales manager of key accounts, including Fortune 500 companies and prestigious nonprofits. After 22 years with one of the world's most multicultural companies, in 2012, Ramon transitioned into his new position, real estate. You don't have to search the Metaverse for your forever real estate agent. Ramon is right here in South Florida, ready to help you navigate the real estate market with confidence and expertise. He leverages modern technology to maximize property exposure through online advertising, social media, and print, reaching both U.S. and international markets. Ramon provides comprehensive information and professional guidance to sellers and buyers. Ramon's real estate business thrives on referrals and word of mouth because for him, it's not just about transactions. It is about developing long-lasting relationships. And he has a great quote: "The home purchase is the most expensive purchase in someone's lifetime. We don't take it for granted. And when we take our jobs very seriously, we didn't get this far by being average." So that's a great quote. And before we get into our show today, I want to remind you about our sponsor, Florida Balance Centers and EIEQinstitute.com, where we help you recognize and manage your level of crazy when dealing with vertigo, dizziness, balance, and pain management conditions. I've had vertigo and I've had other chronic illnesses, and I'm currently premenopausal. So I understand the struggle, guys, and the crazy. So stop suffering and call us today at 954-987-7077. And now let's get into it. EQ to the rescue. So, wow, I'm so excited to have you on the show, Ramon. How are you feeling?
Thank you. Thank you, Esther. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here. I've seen your other shows, and it's a nice way of talking about the current issues that we have in different topics.
Yeah. Well, EQ is a near and dear uh, piece of my life. Emotional intelligence is so important nowadays. And, really recognizing and managing the crazy, right? Especially when we're dealing with a topic like real estate. And today actually was so funny because we had in the chamber, we both belong to the Chamber of Commerce of Hollywood, and that's how we know each other. At the meeting today, we were talking about, somebody had said, yeah, that's what I do. I help people with real estate without drama. And it was so funny because I was like, oh, well, I'm doing an interview later today all about that.
Yes.
So it was perfect. So let's get into it.
Yes.
I want to ask you, the first question here is, what is the biggest challenge nowadays in the market?
You know, the biggest challenge we have nowadays is that everybody has this FMO, the fear of missing out. And what they're missing, what they think they're missing now is the interest rates. Interest rates have been in about the 7%. After COVID, they reached about the 8%. You know, when we had COVID, everybody thought that the market was going to come down, that it was going to collapse, there was going to be a lot of foreclosures, and the total opposite happened. You know, the good news is that the government did push the interest rates to be in the 2s and 3%, which was a great time to buy because we've never seen that in our lifetime or our previous generations' lifetime. You know, this 7% nowadays, a lot of buyers are saying, well, I want to wait until the rates come down. You know, the question we get all the time is like, is it a good time to buy? Well, we always tell them it's a good time to buy if this is what you need right now. You know, if your lease is up and you need to find new housing, if you're tired of your current house and you need to move, is that what are your motivations to move? You know, for me, that 7% interest rate is really not a high interest rate. My first property, I bought it in the year 2000, and I was paying about 7%, 6.87, something like that. And our previous generations, you know, they paid in the 80s 14% or 15%. You know, so it's not a crazy interest rate, but people hesitate and they say, well, I want to wait until they come down. The problem is that we can keep waiting, and the market keeps going up, you know, because there's still sales going on. There's more inventory nowadays. So with the interest rate and previously the lack of inventory, it was difficult to get a house. You know, if you didn't have the cash, it was going to be hard. But now we have more inventory. So it's a buyer's market. You know, buyers can negotiate if the property does not appraise, if we have problems with an inspection, we can negotiate a little more. So the buyers have the upper hand. If they wait until the interest rate comes down, guess what's going to happen? A lot of people will want to buy. So those houses that we have available, they're going to be gone very quick, and then the prices will continue to go up. So the biggest challenge nowadays is educating the people, the customers, that if you wait, it might cost you more in the long run.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting. And I know the conversation is very much about EQ and also about real estate, but I believe that everything, and any time, at any place, we always have to bring spirituality into it because that is my philosophy in life. And so I feel that when you are tapped in to your spirituality, when you're really tapped into your, you know, in your guides and your intuition and your, obviously you're paying attention to the market. You're not just blind faith, you know, you're not just being stupid, but you're actually doing your homework, but then you're tapping into your into your intuition and inner knowing, you will be guided accordingly. So, you know, really waiting for the market to go up or down or sideways or this way really doesn't really matter in my world, you know, because I feel like the right house will be the right house. The right time will be at the right time. Do you agree?
Yes, totally. And you know, when you see a house and you visit places, you visualize your family, your furniture, like, you know, like, oh my God, like this is the house. I know it, you know, like this is it. So yes, it has a lot of emotions, you know, in between. And sometimes, you know, we have to understand that there's no perfect house. There's going to be some sort of sacrifice, you know, to do. Maybe you won't have the biggest kitchen you want, but you will have a space to renovate it and make it bigger. Or maybe you don't have a big backyard, but if you're always at work and you don't have to do, you know, things in the backyard, maybe that's not as important anymore for you. You know, so there's always a give and take, you know, so real estate is definitely very emotional.
Yes. So what would you say, who do you think is suffering the brunt of the market right now? Would you say, I know that you said it's a buyer's market, right? Right now, but like in general, would you say that is there one versus the other, buyer or seller, that really deals from like an emotional suffering? You know, or do you think that there's one or the other that really deals with more drama than the other at any given moment?
Yes, I think the buyers probably suffer the more um, brunt in the transaction, only because sometimes you put an offer on a house and the offer maybe is back and forth, or maybe there's another offer and yours is not accepted. So there's always the disappointment, like, oh, this was the perfect house, I really wanted it. And we go through those emotions and situations, So the buyer nowadays, they have to come up with a down payment if they're financing, the interest rates that we were talking about. And they're the ones that, unfortunately, sometimes they can't get everything that they want, but it's a process. I explain to people, the perfect house is going to be that one that where you see yourself, and you can do a paint job, you can change the color of the walls, you cannot change the location, or maybe the distribution of the house. If it doesn't work for your family, maybe it's not the right house. So the buyers are always the one that have the more stress, I think, and disappointments. They go through more disappointments than sellers. Sellers, they're in their house, they don't need a roof, they are living their day to day, and they probably have a lower interest rate, so they don't have to worry about if they don't get the price that they want. So they can stay put. But I think buyers are the ones that suffer a little bit more than sellers. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying about, when you see a house and you see yourself there. It's so true. I mean, how many times have we had that experience in our own life, right? I remember when I first got my first apartment and I just knew it. I walked in and I was like, this is it. I mean, it matched all my vision. It was like I created it in my head and then I manifested it in my reality. And I walked in and it was like, it was the craziest thing in the whole world because it was unbelievable to how close this reality was. Now, did it show up the first apartment I looked at? No, it took me to get to that place. And it also took, I would say, in the reality of things, every time I went to see an apartment, I would do like a visualization, like, okay, no, I don't like this. I like this. I like this. I don't like that. So it was, a kind of like a combination of creation and rejection. I would reject what I don't like, and I would envision what I did like.
Yeah.
And so that ultimate would manifest the perfect apartment. So it's very powerful.
Yes, and sometimes we have to help you to visualize that, because when I go into a showing, or sometimes we have a house that has too much clutter, or you walk in and people have too many things. They've been living there for 30, 40 years. So obviously they have a lot of little memories from trips and here and pictures, and there's a lot of things in the house, and when people walk in, there's that energy in the house, and people will go, oh no, this is not for me, like I don't like it. So sometimes I have to warn the people, I want you to visualize the place empty and look at the walls. Don't look at the clutter, don't look at the boxes, because some sellers may be packing, or maybe there's tenants in place and they live the way they live. Sometimes they're cooking food and sometimes it doesn't smell as inviting, or sometimes there's dogs or pets. I've had situations where there's a lot of animals and the smell when you walk in is like, oh, this is not good. But when
Yeah.
you know it's the right price and it's the location that is convenient for you and the great schools and all that, then you might be able to oversee that. So if we warn you in advance, listen, I want you to look at the walls because I know this has a lot of potential. Don't look at all the clutter. And that sometimes works. Other times it doesn't work. People say like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, it's not for me.
Yeah. And by the way, I have a great clutter clearing person. I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, David Hall, my friend. So if you ever need a
Yes,
clutter cleaner, there you go.
yes, I saw your video. Yes, on
You saw the
YouTube.
video. Okay,
Yeah,
very good. So awesome. There's a plug for you, David. I hope you love it.
yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you. So, how can self-awareness help real estate agents and all those involved stay calm and effective in a high pressure market? So I would say, you know, self-awareness help the real estate agent, and then we can talk about also the buyers.
Mhm. Yeah, real estate agents, we become psychologists. We have to understand the needs of the client. Maybe the clients are going through a separation, a divorce, or maybe the kids are living, for college and they don't need a bigger place. Maybe they're downsizing. Maybe they got pregnant and they need an extra bedroom. So we always have to understand what is the motivation of the purchase. And with that, you have to keep in mind, people that are going through a difficult situation, you have to have a little bit more empathy and talk a little bit more about what are the things or the process of the purchase. So we always have to understand those customers, what are their needs, why are they moving, and how can we better help them, In situations where you have, for example, a divorce, you have to be very objective with the two clients, husband and wife, or the partners or whomever, because you want to be objective. You don't want to be on one side because they're going to think, oh, you're looking after the other party and not my, self-interest. So we deal a lot with that. Or sometimes we have a husband and wife that they don't meet the same criteria, and the wife likes this property, but the husband does not like the property. And you have to understand why and how can we please both parties so both can be happy, So it's to me it's a very exciting industry because we have to be aware of what's the motivation of the sale. Are they going to help them to move forward, or is this going to create a little bit more problems for them in the long run? So we have to understand that part very well.
Well, I have a great solution for you. Tom and I, when we first moved into our condo here, we had a lot of disagreements because we were still early on in the relationship, and we were trying to figure out certain, relationship dynamics. And so decorating the house is a big thing. Right. And so what we found was that if we didn't both like the item coming into the house, we don't buy it. Because what would happen is, if let's say I liked it, but he couldn't live with it, forget it, and vice versa. So we decided that, you know what, I don't need something if it's going to be that upsetting to you. I'd rather be at peace with you. So, that really has worked for us. And I'll tell you what, when we both agree on something, it's amazing. It's probably the most amazing product in the whole world because sometimes our different, our opinions are so different. So if we both like it, oh my God, we're like, buy it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
So
absolutely. And you know what? And in our industry, we tend to think we want to have a win-win situation too, because you have your buyer side and also there's the seller side. And sometimes the sellers have their own point of view. And if you have, let's say, the meeting of the minds, the price, for example, you both have to agree to a purchase price that is not going to make the seller feel like they're losing on money, and it's not going to make the buyer feel like, oh my God, we're overpaying. So we have to come up to a middle and have the meeting of the minds. So it's not only on the one side, but you also have to think on the other side as well. Because I like to have opportunities when you can have win-win situations. There's other times that the motivation is different and they want to sell right away, and you have a client that wants to jump on an opportunity that is going to be a win only for the buyer. So it depends on the situation, but every situation is different, and that's what makes our job more exciting too.
I will tell you that, and this is where it's amazing. I find whenever you're dealing with issues where people are involved, which are pretty much our whole lives, right? Because humans are everywhere. I find it fascinating that every interaction is another opportunity to learn how to be a better human. And I will tell you that when Tom was selling his house, he actually, the buyer requested to meet with Tom. And it was an old school kind of mentality. They were international people. They wanted to meet him. They wanted him to meet the family. He wanted to sit down, have coffee. It was like a whole thing, And Tom really loved it. He was like, wow, I am so happy because he really wanted the house to go to somebody who would truly appreciate it. It was a home that he had raised his family in for 30 years. It was a very special home for him. And when he was getting ready to sell it so that me and him can go on now and live our lives together,
Yeah.
it was a very emotional thing for him. So for that man to request that, and for Tom to meet the family and to see that who was going to be moving in there and actually like see what's going on, it really made him feel good and made him feel safe, and it made him feel like, wow, like what a win-win. And to this day, knock on wood, they're, still in communication. And so it's great. So I think we need to do business more like that. We need to remember that what's going on in the world today is a result of this lack of humanness, this human, dignity. And I write about it in my book. It's common sense and dignity for each other, or decency, sorry, common sense and decency for one another, and not just being so quick to make a deal and get out of there and get the best price and screw the other person. And we really got to stop that. We really need to understand that the way we're going to heal the divide within ourselves and then with each other is through managing our own crazy, and then helping move things move things forward from a real conscious and loving space, even if you don't know them, but be a decent person,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And I've had situations where, for example, a seller is a little bit stubborn and they want whatever price. And if we get an offer that is way lower than what they're expecting, a lot of times they're like, I don't want to counter. Like, I don't want to hear about it. I'm not going to deal with these people. I hate low ballers. And in those situations, we have to explain to them, you have to understand that, this is the budget, they're approved for this amount. They gave us an offer, but I know they can probably maybe negotiate. We can probably negotiate and come a little bit more. But instead of closing the door, we just have to give a counter offer. Make sure like, okay, even if you give a $5,000 reduction or $1,000 something, instead of saying no, I don't want them, just give a little bit, and they will maybe come up, because everybody tries to fish also for a great deal at the beginning. So we have to make the sellers understand that part. And sometimes with buyers too. I have a buyer that wanted to offer a very low offer for a house that it didn't justify that type of price. And I had to show him, listen, look at the houses. This is what has sold in the area. To give an example, if everything is selling in the 600s or 700s, and you want to offer 400,000 for a house, we're just not going to get anywhere, because it's not a realistic offer. Even though you want a deal, it's just not going to happen. So we have to explain on both sides. This is to get a successful transaction. We have to come up with a good strategy where everybody's going to be happy.
Right.
We don't want people to feel bad about the transaction.
Exactly. Yeah, we got to learn to become more win-win oriented.
Correct.
So, what would you say is a strategy that real estate professionals can use to regulate their emotions during negotiations? And I would say real estate agents and also buyers, but let's focus on the professionals at the moment.
Yeah, the way I look at the real estate transaction has a lot of things that go in place when you place an offer on a property. You have, the execution of the contract, which there's a timeline, a date. You have an inspection to organize, make sure that the house is in good state, good condition. You're going to have to go through the loan process, which you have to provide a lot of documentation, taxes, pay stubs, employment letters, things like that. Then you're going to have an appraisal, where a bank is going to come and make sure that the house is worth the amount that we're saying that we're going under contract. So there's a lot of components, in a transaction, and each one of those components, you're dealing with different people. You're dealing with an inspection company, you're dealing with a termite person, a plumber, electrician, you're dealing with a title company, mortgage broker. So I see in our industry, I look at it like if it's like a melody. We're the real estate agents are like the directors of the orchestra. You have the violin, the cello, the trumpet, like all the types of melodies that we have within one transaction. And we have to make sure that all of them communicate and all of them go seamless to have a great song at the end. And at the end, when everybody's happy, we created a great melody. So that's one of the things that I always tell people, like we have to make sure that everybody does their part of the job at the time that they're supposed to do. Even with mortgage brokers too, if we don't have a loan commitment within 30 days, we have the risk of losing the deposit of the buyer. So we want to make sure that they are on top of that transaction, but I cannot tell them a day before. I need to be on top of them for the next week, 10 days, 12 days. How did we get, what's the progress? I don't want surprises, and I don't want the buyers or sellers to have surprises either. So that's why the director has to make sure that everybody comes at the right time so that we have a seamless transaction, and everybody's happy. So we create that melody of home ownership.
Nice. And really quick, if you could shut down your phone sound, is that your beeping? Is that you that beeps?
No.
No? Okay. I keep hearing a beep in the background. Okay, no worries. Okay. So in what ways does empathy enhance the client relationship and lead to more successful real estate transactions?
Every client has their own motivation, and every client to us, it's an important client. You have to understand that, for example, a budget, when people deal with real estate transactions, and there's a lot of agents that deal at different levels. But to give you a story, I have a client that had a budget of $40,000, and I'm telling you this was about 10 years ago, where $40,000 could still get you something in that market. Nowadays you cannot get anything for that money. But he was calling different people because he wanted to purchase a property. And a lot of agents were not even calling him back because that budget was just too low. And when we spoke to the client, I wanted to hear, so what is the motivation? What is it that you need? And I knew that the client, it's not that they didn't have money. It was just money that they had saved, that they had put on the side, and that's what they want to invest. So by closing all the doors with a lot of other agents, we said, okay, I know some properties that we can find through some systems, foreclosures and those kind of things. And I talked to the client and said, look, this house or apartment is going to probably need a lot of work. Are you open to doing mold remediation, gutting everything, kitchen, bathrooms, and you have to do your own thing? And he was, absolutely, that's what I want. So we succeeded at getting him a property that at the beginning we didn't get it, by the way. We put it as backup offer, and at the end, the other client, our buyer, fell through, the deal fell through, and then we were able to come in and we got the property for $48,000. So when this client was talking to me afterwards, he said, I can't believe that we got this. I'm so happy because you made it happen. And a lot of people would not even call me back. They would tell me, no, I don't have anything for you. And you're the first one that said, there's no impossibles, we can do it, and let me do some work and research, and I'll try to get you something. Well, with that situation, this client found a girlfriend. She wasn't buying, she was renting. Why not buy? So we got a purchase on that. Then they started going out more seriously. They got pregnant, and then they needed a bigger space, so then we sold that house, we bought a bigger space, then he moved to another property, and after, I want to tell you a year and a half, we sold almost a $2 million property in those 3 transactions, only because I helped this client for $40,000. So you have to understand that, not everybody has a big budget. You have to understand the needs of the person, regardless of the budget. To me, I think every single budget, whether it's 100,000 or 10 million, it's important. That's why I say we don't take this for granted. For anybody that can afford X amount of dollars, it's not a lesser client than somebody that has more money. It's the dreams of home ownership. So for me, that's very important. And I tell a lot of new agents, never say no to those clients that you think that maybe they don't have the money, or maybe they don't have the budget, just listen to them and see what are the motives, and how can you help.
Yeah, what you're saying is vital. We have a sliding scale clinic at our clinic, and the reason why is because after COVID, a lot of things changed, obviously, for a lot of people, and it was very hard out there. And so the clinic has to survive, and also people need help. So I told Tom, I said, why don't we create a sliding scale clinic and let people dictate their pricing, whatever they can afford. Now, we do have a threshold because unfortunately we have to keep the lights on. So we have to do what we have to do. But it really helped out in those moments where you feel the person really needs the treatment. They really want to do the work, but they just don't have a budget, or, a certain budget, or they have a certain budget and they don't have insurance, right? And so it really would help those kinds of situations. And we've been able to help so many people because of that.
Yeah.
And I think people also have to remember that when you, as the real estate agent, is lending a hand and offering a sincere support system, you also have to be willing to accept it. You know how many people just don't know how to receive help? They don't know how to receive a loving, supportive energy. It's because they've had so much trauma in their life that when something good is coming at them, they don't even know what to do with it. I mean, I've had people react in the weirdest ways with me when I tell them, okay, it's a sliding scale. What can you pay? And they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, I don't even know what you're saying right now. I don't even know how to answer your question. What do you mean? That they have meltdowns on the phone with me. And so I just go, okay, I just, stay calm, and I just, explain again. And I say, why don't you think about it? Why don't you talk to your, whoever it is, your spouse, your friend, whatever, and call me when you're ready. And I just find it fascinating because that's the thing. We don't always know how to receive that support when it's coming. So I think it's an amazing thing that you do have that level of empathy and you're able to really genuinely offer it, and you have a long range vision to see that it will play out, or maybe not, but you seem like you don't really care about that. You just want to be supportive. You just want to help.
Yes, and the most important thing is to help people. I mean, basically, since I was young, I mean, one of the greatest things my parents always taught us was treat people kindly. Like, be nice to people. It doesn't matter if they're whatever um, uh, background they have, wherever they come from. My dad used to have a furniture factory back in Mexico, and a lot of times he would get invited by his workers, to little towns in Mexico where we would go, and people that lived in very poor conditions. And my dad was always like, we come and we stay, we say hello to everybody. They offer you food, you eat it, you sit down, you give them the importance. And to me, it always resonated. And I'm one of those people that I like to talk to people. I like to make you feel included, in networking events, which is, one of the events that we met. I like to go and make people feel welcome. How can we help you? What can we do? How can we make life better? It's just all about connections. And I think we come in this life for such a short period of time, and if you can do a lot to help others, I think that's more rewarding than just, being a little bit selfish about it.
Yeah, it's true. And you are so welcoming. It's so true. You are definitely an example of that, because when we came to the event that night, it's always awkward. You come, and I have no problem going up to people and saying hello. I'm one of those people, but it does always feel good to be able to see a smiling face. And you were that smiling sunshine right there, like, hi, how are you? Welcome, and you were so kind. And I was just like, I love this guy.
Thank you.
And you continue to be that way, because sometimes people are like that initially, but they're not like that the second time.
Mhm.
And you were like that all along the way. I called you several times, I texted you a couple times, and you were just always consistent. And they say look for consistency when you're dealing with with service companies, right? When you go buy a product somewhere, look
Yeah,
for consistency. And also I look for that in friendship. And
yeah,
so out of that, look what happened. Here we are on a call.
yeah.
And so I think, if we can all do that and we can all be examples of that, I think it'll take us a long way as humanity.
Agreed.
Um, how can strong social skills and EQ help real estate agents build and maintain a robust professional network? What do you think?
As agents, we have to be out there, out and about. I always tell people that have their own business owners, if you're a business owner, you need to be out and about promoting your business. If we stay in the computer, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, and clients may not just come like that. Sometimes you need to go out and talk to people. We keep saying, I tell people in our networking events, you have to be in every place at every time to be at the right place at the right time.
Mm.
Because sometimes you'll find somebody that just needs that help, and then boom, there it is. In one of my networking events, I met a gentleman that was coincidentally from Mexico, and we started talking, and I'm like, oh my God, how long have you been here? Blah blah blah. We spoke about being living in Miami, and then he expressed to me that he was losing his house, he was getting divorced, it was going to go to foreclosure, and there was a lot of issues going on. And I'm like, wait, but why do you letting it go to foreclosure? You can do a short sale, And he explained to me the situation he had, and I was able to get involved and help him with that transaction. So if I had not been in that moment at that networking event, then I wouldn't have received this client. And it could happen for the multi-million-dollar client or the multi-million-dollar business or the most wonderful friend, you could suddenly have. So if you're not out there promoting your business, it's going to be a little bit harder to move forward. So to me, I always tell people, go out, talk about real estate, talk about what is it that you do. And the Chamber of Commerce is one of the great platforms that gives us that, because you're able to go and talk to people and promote, your business. So I think it's important that you're always out there. Our business as realtors comes from referrals. A happy customer is going to tell their clients, they're going to tell their family members, their brothers, sisters, uncles, I just bought a house. Oh, really? And then somebody, oh, I want a house there too. I want to move to Florida. And then, oh, call my agent. So it's always about referrals. So to me, it's very important that you maintain that part of go out, talk to people, be social, and build your business. I think that's a very important thing to do. As business owners, go out and promote your business.
It's true. This morning, last minute, they called me yesterday asking me to do a presentation
Mhm.
about our business because I guess somebody was sick or whatever, and they needed a presentation for the morning. And it was amazing because I've been actually working on preparing myself to do a presentation for the chamber. And so when they called me, that's when, you have to hear those opportunities and take them. So I was like, yes, let's do it. So I was able to go this morning and do, about 30 minutes, just talking about the business. I did a little PowerPoint and it was great. And so I totally agree that being in some sort of networking group or a chamber, or, maybe sometimes you have social clubs, whatever it is that you're doing, that will really help you with your social skills. It'll help you really learn how to communicate better, and also see your own blind spots.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't see our blind spots and we think that we're the greatest thing, since sliced bread, but
Mhm.
we could be, really noxious, and we don't know that because we don't go out there and we're not communicating with people and we're not seeing the reflection from others And we're like, whoa. And they say, whatever you don't like and what you do like in another person, you have in you.
Yeah.
So it's a very powerful lesson. And, I think it's vital for us to be growing as professionals.
Correct, correct. And when we go out to the supermarket, when we go out to order food or restaurant or anywhere, I come from hospitality, from the customer service background, and at the time, it was so important that every time that we crossed one of the guests in the hotel, we always had to say hello, good morning, or buenos dias, or depending which country we were at. And a lot of times you knew where the people were from, because this was a very multicultural resort. So we always knew, you can tell the nationalities of people. And so it allowed us all the time to be cordial and to say hello and acknowledge people, as well as the employees. If there were the housekeepers, the gardeners, the maintenance staff, sweeping, like it didn't matter. You say hello to everyone when you cross. So it was a great thing because it helps me a lot with my business now. But when I first moved to New York City, I had that background, and when I was walking in the subway going to work, I would be like with a big smile, saying hello to everybody, good morning, da, da, da. And people would look at me like, who's this crazy weirdo? Because I was just doing all that and realized that it doesn't apply everywhere. But I still apply it, unconsciously. Every time I walk my dog, I pass another dog, another person walking. I say good morning. Sometimes they have their ear sets, listening to music, and I just go like good morning. And it's just part of the nature. Like you just want to, throw out good positive energy. Be kind to each other, and I think that's gonna make a big difference, especially nowadays that are, things that are happening in the world, like everybody's just up in roars. Like we just have to be kind. It doesn't matter. Everything's gonna be all right.
Exactly, exactly. And I really love your vibe, Ramon. Like you're just one of those people that you just want to be with you like all the time. I could just like sit on your little shoulder and just walk around with you all the time.
Thank you.
Because what you're saying is so right on. We went away with my mother. She was doing a training this was like 2 years. Oh, COVID actually. It was during COVID. She was taking a class to be a travel agent. And we had gone with her to Mexico, and we went to a variety of different resorts. And the resort we stayed, it was one of these all-inclusive resorts. And it was just like that. It was like everybody said hello, everybody said good morning, everybody was smiling, everybody and it didn't matter. And it was so great. And you could see that you know, I always say whenever you call an office, you can tell how the leadership is there based on how the person answers the phone.
Yeah.
If the person is happy, then it means that that company is being run very well. Now, of course, you could have it one off. You could have a bad day and maybe the person answered the phone and they're not in a mood or whatever. But for the most part, I've seen that is very consistent with my theory that when the company is run properly, the employees are happy. When
Yeah.
there's all kinds of chaos going on, you will hear it and you will see it in the employees. So a productive employee, or excuse me, a happy employee is a productive employee. And so what you're saying is so right on. And it's not always easy being that positive.
Hmm.
I am the first person to admit that. That's why I'm writing a book on Level of Crazy. And that's
Yeah.
why I create these concepts, because I am the first one to say I'm not always the cheery, I don't wake up always cheery and, happy go lucky, but that is my goal in life. And I use humor to move forward because it's such a powerful medicine,
Yes.
right?
It helps me a lot every morning. I wake up around 6 a.m. And every morning that I go out, because I have my routine with my dog and hopefully another dog soon, walking outside, yes, even in the heat and with the humidity and all that, I always take a moment when I'm walking to show some gratitude. I'm always happy that, it's great that I can walk. It's great that I can see this, beautiful, street, the palm trees, the neighbor's house, and sometimes I see other houses that I'm like, oh, I never noticed that house. Look what they've done to the yard, and or other ones that like, oh, look, I didn't even know that there was like this other side structure, next to it. But every time I walk, I look at the sky, I look at the birds, I hear the parrots, and I'm always thinking, I'm very grateful. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I have the health, that I can walk, that I can go out. We take everything for granted. So my days start with gratitude every day. And I try to walk to the water. I live in East Hollywood, and I try to get to the Intracoastal or South Lake or North Lake. To me, the water and the ocean gives me a lot of great energy, and I always try to absorb it. And every time that I walk, I'm like, it's going to be a beautiful day. So I always tell everybody, it's a beautiful day in South Florida. Everybody that somebody calls, if you hear my voicemail, that's my slogan. It's a beautiful day in South Florida, because I always think it is. So when it's a bad day, I start with that, and then my mind shifts, and then it becomes better. We have to understand, like, whatever we think, we might attract. So if you think negativity, you might attract negativity. So I try to stay positive. Even in the hard days, there's always going to be something good coming out of this.
Yes, 100%. And nature is so important. Nature is one of those things that, I also talk about this in the book, is that when you want to really boost some creativity, when you want to reconnect to your soul, when you want to just kind of get the cobwebs out of there and just kind of unstick the energy. Sometimes we can feel stagnant or yucky or whatever. Take a walk outside, even if it's hot, even if it's humid, even if it's raining. One time, when we first were together, Tom and I, we went dancing in the rain,
Right. I've
So
done that. Yes.
yeah, it's amazing. So nature is there for us, it's like little angels of light and empowerment and just connecting to spirit. So nature is so powerful.
Yes.
So, I think we talked about so many great tools, and I had one last question here. So what are some practical tools for real estate agents to stay motivated, resilient in a volatile, I know I'm totally butchering that word, volatile market using emotional intelligence?
Our industry, real estate industry, is a difficult industry. There's the perception that because you see these shows on Netflix or Million Dollar Listings, and you see the potential of people making a lot of money. Everybody falls into that, and then we get a lot of people that want to get into real estate because they see that potential. In my mind, we have to do what are you passionate about. You have to do something that you love. If you're doing it just to make the money because you think it's going to be a great payout, I can tell you this: it takes time to be at that level. When you start, you go little by little, climbing the ladder. The more clients you get, you start growing. So when I started about 13 years ago, in 2012, so 12 years, I had 6 months of no income, because it took me some time but I knew that it was going to be like that, and I prepared. So you always have to keep that state of mind that, sometimes we're going to have great years or great times, great compensation for a sale, but sometimes you're not going to have that. So, and you have to keep going, you have to keep learning, you have to, invest in yourself. So my advice to agents that are starting is always, like what I was telling you with the other client that I had, don't dismiss, any agent. I mean, any customer, because that customer could be a great customer. Invest in yourself, invest in your learning. I like to go to conventions, to learn about technology. I mean, nowadays technology is so important. Social media is crazy. I mean, before we didn't have this. I mean, it's great that we're communicating like this, even something as simple as a Zoom call. But before, all that didn't exist. So you have to embrace technology and the social media aspect of it. In our industry, people shop visually. How many times you see people going in the app up and down? And you have a very short attention span for clients. So since people shop visually, our industry is requiring more and more, like videos, for example. Before we had pictures, now videos. I have a lot of fun making videos. I have a YouTube channel. I put some of my listings and I make a little introduction or talk about the property. I've done Facebook Live, open houses, things like that. And I always laugh at myself or with myself because I make a lot of mistakes. I've said the wrong address sometimes in the video when I'm live and I'm like, oops, and you just have to laugh about it.
Mhm.
When I do a video, sometimes it takes me like 15 takes and my tongue drops and goes like blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh boy. If I had a time to do a blooper, video and laugh about all the mistakes that I make, I would laugh a lot. But consistency on that, on the video part, just have fun. Doesn't have to be perfect. Don't criticize yourself too much. Don't be so hard on yourself. But video is important. Take advantage of social media because it's a way of promoting your business. You can do it in a free way. If you're doing organically yourself, I like to do it like that. I don't like to pay for followers. There's a lot of people that pay, and you see people that have 30,000 followers, influencers. There's some of them that are real influencers and some that are just paying followers. I prefer to do it organically with the little things that I know. I'm by no means a huge, real estate agent. We do well, and we do what's right for the customer. Do right for your client. Treat your client like if it was your own money. If you were going to buy this house, would I overpay? Because you're thinking about the compensation. Don't think about that. Think about, is the client going to save money if you're representing a buyer? If you're representing a seller, then you have to get more money for the buyer, for the seller. So it depends the type of transaction you're at. But always do what's right for the customer, not what's right for you. Just have to think about that. And when the customer like that is happy, then they're going to be recommending you a lot more, you know?
Yeah, exactly. All very good points, really staying focused on what's the right thing. And I agree with you. I think in a world that is so mass everything, buy this, do this, be that, have more. It's like it's so overwhelming. And I think that people don't realize that that is a lot of the crazy comes from that. So we
Yeah.
really have to focus on simplifying our life. And some people don't want to, and that's okay. If you're someone who loves high energy and a lot, and you want to have a lot and do a lot and be a lot, that's great. Good for you.
Yeah.
But some people don't want that. They don't need that. They want to have a simple life, a humble life. They have humble home and a car, and they're just happy. And you know what? That's great too. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think in those moments, that's where the real quality can come through. And
Mhm.
so that's what I'm hearing from you, Ramon, is that you're really about the quality, not the quantity.
Yeah.
And, I know that I would prefer to work with people like that.
Mhm.
So I think that's amazing. Any final thoughts that you have for the viewers, for real estate agents, for buyers from an EQ perspective on how to stay alive and stay on top with real estate?
You know, uh, Real estate or your home is your sanctuary. And if you have a home that needs some change, you want to change some things, you want to move somewhere else, go somewhere else, where you're going to be happier is going to be at home. I mean, everybody craves to go home, have your own little space. In my mind, find your passion and be happy. And this is where we need to reconvene. I don't have like a huge house. I have a small house. I live, like I said, in East Hollywood. I have a nice yard that keeps me happy all the time. And I love to do yard work and just be outside and do some clipping of landscaping things and, keeping the simple life. It's just find your happiness, look for the things that make you happy, and everything comes by, um, real estate is a little crazy. People think like, oh my God, it's going to change. This is going to happen. We can't predict the future. And if I could predict the future, I would probably be rich, right? or all of us will be rich. So you have to keep it a day at a time. Everybody thinks, oh, the market's going to collapse. I should wait. Prices are going to come down. Like, don't wait for all that. Wait, take the decision based on what your needs are. If your needs right now are to buy a house or a condo or move to a new rental place, I mean, you don't have to purchase, you could also be renting, but look for that place that's going to make you happy. Sometimes I say to people, don't settle. Try to look for something that's going to be better for you, because later you're going to think like, oh, I should have done that. I should have bought this place. I should have. You know how many times I have clients that tell me that, remember that place you showed me? I should have bought it because now it's worth so much more. You were right. That I'm like, well, don't think about it because it's pointless. It's part of the past. The past doesn't exist anymore. Now we learn. Now let's focus on the future.
Yeah.
Keep it sane and don't have the fear of missing out because you're not missing anything. There will always be a house or a place or a condo, for you.
Yeah. And I think also another tool that people could use, both real estate agents as well as buyers, is really tapping into your intuition. Really meditation, taking some time to kind of do a check and balance of what you truly want. Kind of like what I did when I went around looking for this apartment, right? And really make a little checklist. I like this. I don't like this. And you'll know what feels right, what doesn't. And through that process, you will create your magical space, right?
Yes. And the best is when that magical space, you already did your paint job, your decoration, you sit down and maybe have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, whatever you like, and be there and be like, like I love my place. To me, that's what makes me happy when I get clients and people that tell me, you know what, oh my God, we're so happy they send me a picture of the barbecue, the kids or themselves in the backyard or whatever. Look what we did. That is what makes me happy. Oh, and another advice for a lot of agents is that always stay in touch with your customers because those customers are your best customers. Sometimes we make a sale and then we don't call the client anymore. Like after a few months or years, you're like, oh my God, like I have a lot of agents, they tell me, I'm embarrassed to call people because I sold them the house 10 years ago. What am I going to say? Oh, hi, I'm here, your agent again. No, just stay in touch with people, call them for a birthday, for graduation or whatever. Always keep in touch with your customers because your past customers are probably your best customers. They already know you.
Yeah, that's a great point. That is something that Tom and I do at the clinic. And he taught me that. He always says, please make sure you call this person. They haven't been here for a while. Please check in with them. We want them to know that we care. It's not just about, one and done, call them, please stay in touch with them. And it's true. And he's absolutely right. And every time I call, and I do get them, because of course you get a lot of voicemails, but when you do get them, most of the time it's, oh, wow, thank you for calling me. Oh my goodness, it's been a while, but it's okay. Like, how are you feeling? And, oh my God, I'm doing amazing. Or, oh, I'm still struggling with that. Well, we're here when you need us, so I totally get what you're saying. And I think that also, when you're a type of agent that hears from your clients, and you actually took the words right out of my mouth, when your clients are happy in their new home and they're having their cup of coffee and you can be connected to that and they reach out to you with a picture or whatever it is, I know that must be such a rewarding feeling to be like, wow, I was a part of that,
Correct. Totally. That's to us, that's the most important thing too. It's like, oh, and when I hear them calling me back or, it puts a smile on my face too because I'm like, oh, my client is calling me like, hey, how are you? Like it's nice to touch base with people.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ramon. This has been such a great conversation. I'm glad that we got to do this, and you're amazing. And I hope that your clients truly appreciate you because you sound like the best agent ever. You really do sound like you're forever agent here in South Florida.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
We're going to
you,
be in this industry all the time. I appreciate it.
yeah. So I'm gonna close out our episode today. So don't go anywhere. And if you want to do my quote with me, you're welcome. I know you don't know it, but here it is. And maybe next time you'll do it with me. So here we go, guys. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. Till next time. When you know and understand yourself, the world will know and understand you too. And remember, what's the best that can happen? Now let's get crazy. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ramon, for being with
Thank you.
us.
Thank you so much. Nice talking to you.